Good morning, I'm Remo, and breaking this hour. Over 50 migrants are confirmed dead after a vessel capsizes off Yemen's coast in what's being called one of the deadliest maritime disasters of the year. This is the Daily Signal for August 4th, 2025.
Unfiltered. Now,
Here are the other top stories for August 4th, 2025. Netanyahu formally requests Red Cross access to Gaza hostages as Hamas sets conditions for humanitarian aid delivery. Pope Leo addresses 1 million Catholic youth worldwide, declaring they represent proof a different world is possible. 80 years after Hiroshima and Nagasaki, global leaders call for renewed nuclear disarmament efforts. Chile confirms all 5 missing copper miners found dead after underground collapse traps workers for 3 days. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer declares current tariff rates pretty much set, no major changes expected. State Department confirms American citizen killed in alleged West Bank settler attack was Palestinian-American, dual national. Israeli minister with history of provocative actions leads prayers at controversial Jerusalem holy site, sparking international concern. Ukrainian drone strike ignites massive fire at Russian oil depot, while Zelensky announces major prisoner exchange. Auburn basketball coach Bruce Pearl faces nationwide backlash over controversial claims about former President Obama. Now let's dive into each story. The numbers are staggering. More than 50 people are confirmed dead this morning after a migrant vessel capsized in the treacherous waters off Yemen's coast. This represents one of the deadliest maritime disasters in the Red Sea region this year. Here's what happened. The overcrowded boat was carrying migrants attempting the dangerous journey from the Horn of Africa towards Saudi Arabia when it went down in rough seas. Survivors described scenes of panic as the vessel took on water rapidly. Search and rescue operations recovered dozens of bodies, with more potentially missing. This tragedy highlights the ongoing migration crisis in the region. Thousands of migrants, primarily from Ethiopia and Somalia, attempt this deadly crossing monthly, fleeing poverty and conflict. The route through Yemen has become increasingly dangerous due to ongoing civil war and deteriorating conditions. Why this matters to you? This disaster underscores the global migration crisis that continues to claim lives while international communities struggle with coordination and resources for safe passage alternatives. Breaking overnight from the Middle East, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has formally requested international Red Cross assistance to deliver humanitarian aid to Israeli hostages held in Gaza. But here's the critical detail. Hamas is saying yes, but with conditions. Hamas has agreed to allow Red Cross deliveries of food and medicine to the approximately 50 remaining hostages, but they're demanding Israel permanently open humanitarian corridors into Gaza and halt all airstrikes during aid distributions. This represents the first potential breakthrough in months of deadlocked negotiations. The humanitarian situation is dire on all sides. Gaza's health ministry reports 175 deaths from starvation since the conflict began, including 93 children. Meanwhile, families of the estimated 20 hostages still believed alive are pressuring Netanyahu to accept Hamas's terms, warning against expanding war tactics. The real story here. This could be the opening both sides need for broader negotiations, but the conditions attached show how complex any resolution remains. Both populations are paying the ultimate price, while politicians calculate their moves. 1 million Catholic youth received a powerful message this weekend that's reverberating far beyond religious circles. Pope Leo, addressing young Catholics worldwide, declared they represent living proof that a different world is possible. The Pope's message focused on climate action, social justice, and economic inequality, issues that resonate deeply with younger generations regardless of faith background. He specifically called on youth to reject the culture of waste and embrace the revolution of tenderness. Here's why this matters beyond the Catholic Church. Religious leaders commanding global audiences increasingly focus on secular challenges like environmental destruction and wealth inequality. When someone addressing 1 billion Catholics calls for systemic change, markets and governments take notice. The Pope's youth-focused approach represents a strategic shift, recognizing that younger generations will inherit the consequences of today's policy decisions. This message could influence everything from voting patterns to consumer behavior across continents. 80 years ago this week, the world entered the nuclear age with the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Today's commemorations carry urgent warnings as global nuclear tensions reach their highest levels since the Cold War. Survivors, known as hibakusha, are sharing their testimonies with renewed urgency. Many are now in their 80s and 90s, making this potentially the last major anniversary where first-hand witnesses can speak directly to world leaders. Their message is clear: never again. But here's the troubling reality. 9 countries now possess nuclear weapons, with combined arsenals exceeding 13,000 warheads. Recent conflicts have included nuclear threats, and modernization programs continue expanding globally. The key detail you need to remember: as the last survivors of nuclear warfare age out, the world risks losing the human connection to nuclear weapons' true consequences. Today's ceremonies aren't just remembrance. They're urgent warnings about tomorrow's choices. All 5 miners trapped in a Chilean copper mine collapse have been confirmed dead, ending a 3-day rescue operation that captivated the country. The tragedy occurred at a small-scale mining operation in Chile's northern desert region. Rescue teams worked around the clock using specialized equipment to reach the miners trapped nearly 200 feet underground. The collapse appears to have been instantaneous, giving workers no time to reach safety chambers. Family members maintained vigil at the site until officials confirmed the worst. Chile's mining industry employs over 200,000 people and produces nearly 30% of the world's copper, essential for everything from electronics to electric vehicles. This disaster raises serious questions about safety standards, particularly at smaller operations that may lack the advanced safety systems of major mining companies. This connects to your daily life. Copper prices could spike following safety concerns and potential regulatory crackdowns. That means higher costs for electronics, cars, and home construction materials in coming months. Pretty much set, those 3 words from U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer just provided clarity on American trade policy for the remainder of 2025. No major tariff changes are expected, signaling stability after months of uncertainty. Greer's statement comes amid ongoing negotiations with multiple trading partners and suggests the administration has found its equilibrium on trade policy. Current tariff rates on Chinese goods, European imports, and other key trading relationships will remain largely unchanged. Here's what this means for your wallet. Prices on imported goods won't see the sudden spikes or drops that come with tariff adjustments. Companies can plan inventory and pricing with greater confidence, potentially leading to more stable consumer prices. The broader implication: trade wars and retaliatory tariffs have been replaced by a managed competition approach that prioritizes predictability over dramatic policy swings. This could encourage long-term business investment and supply chain planning. The State Department confirmed this morning that a Palestinian killed in an alleged Israeli settler attack was indeed an American citizen, a dual national whose death now creates a significant diplomatic complication. The victim, whose identity is being withheld pending family notification, was reportedly killed during clashes in the occupied West Bank. Initial reports suggested the death resulted from settler violence, but Israeli authorities dispute this characterization and claim self-defense. This detail changes everything. When American citizens are killed abroad, especially in controversial circumstances, it triggers formal State Department investigations and potential diplomatic consequences. The Biden administration now faces pressure to respond to what Palestinian officials are calling the murder of an American citizen. The timing is particularly sensitive given ongoing Gaza ceasefire negotiations and broader Middle East tensions. How the U.S. responds to this American citizen's death could influence everything from military aid to diplomatic relations throughout the region. An Israeli minister with a documented history of provocative actions led prayers at one of Jerusalem's most sensitive religious sites, sparking immediate international condemnation and raising tensions throughout the region. The minister's presence at the Temple Mount Al-Aqsa Mosque compound sacred to both Jews and Muslims, represents exactly the kind of action that has triggered violent clashes in the past. Palestinian leaders immediately condemned the move as a deliberate provocation designed to inflame tensions. Here's his track record. This official has previously made statements denying Palestinian historical connections to Jerusalem and has advocated for expanded Jewish access to sites currently under Muslim administration. His actions consistently generate controversy and diplomatic incidents. Why this matters beyond regional politics. Jerusalem's holy sites are flashpoints that can trigger broader conflicts affecting global oil prices, international security, and diplomatic relationships worldwide. When provocative figures take inflammatory actions at these sites, the consequences ripple far beyond religious communities. Ukrainian drones struck deep into Russian territory overnight, igniting a massive fire at an oil depot, while President Zelensky simultaneously announced a significant prisoner exchange with Moscow. The oil facility fire, visible for miles and requiring hundreds of firefighters to control, demonstrates Ukraine's expanding capability to strike strategic targets inside Russia. This represents a significant escalation in Ukraine's long-range attack capacity. But here's the diplomatic twist. Even as Ukrainian forces attacked Russian infrastructure, both sides completed a prisoner exchange involving dozens of captured soldiers and civilians. This suggests back-channel communication continues despite escalating military actions. The broader implication, Ukraine's ability to strike Russian energy infrastructure while maintaining diplomatic channels for prisoner exchanges, shows the complex reality of modern warfare. Simultaneous escalation and negotiation occurring on parallel tracks. Looking across today's stories, three critical themes emerge that will shape the coming weeks. First, humanitarian crises are driving political decisions. From Yemen's migrant disaster to Gaza's hostage situation to Chile's mining tragedy, human suffering is forcing governments to act. When people die preventable deaths, political calculations change rapidly. Second, religious and cultural leaders are filling political vacuums. Pope Leo's message to 1 million youth and the Jerusalem Holy Site controversy show how spiritual authority increasingly influences secular policy. As traditional political institutions struggle with global challenges, religious figures are stepping into leadership roles. Third, conflict and diplomacy now operate simultaneously. Ukraine strikes Russian targets while exchanging prisoners. Israel faces American diplomatic pressure while negotiating hostage releases. The old model of either war or peace has been replaced by permanent hybrid states, mixing violence with negotiation. Here's what to watch. These humanitarian crises could trigger refugee movements affecting multiple continents. Religious tensions in Jerusalem could spark broader regional conflicts. And the new model of simultaneous conflict and cooperation may become the permanent state of international relations. Your key takeaway: we're witnessing the emergence of a new global system where humanitarian emergencies, religious authority, and hybrid conflicts intersect in ways that will define international relationships for decades to come. This has been the Daily Signal. I'm Remo. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you tomorrow morning with the stories that matter most.
Unfiltered.